Okay, so good morning, everyone. I am Bintang, along with my friend Ester, Hanif, Azkal, Agib, Abi, Citta, Hafisa, and Hani. We are from Group 6, and today we are going to present about the Nissan case. Okay, so first we are going to talk about the case overview of what the case itself actually is. So, who is Nissan? So, as you guys know, Nissan Motor Co. Ltd is one of the biggest car brand in the world. They are currently headquartered in Yokohama, Japan, and was founded in 1933. They are currently seated as the ninth largest automotive company, with a revenue growing as high as 78 billion dollars. As you can see, Nissan here is one of the biggest company because they could cater to a lot of people, as in if someone wants a car for their daily life, then Nissan has them. If someone wants a sports car, then Nissan has them. So they cater to every segment of people, which what makes them really, really successful. But now we're going to talk about one of the darker chapters of Nissan's past, which is regarding Carlos Ghosn and the crimes he did. So let's ask first, who is Carlos Ghosn? Carlos Ghosn was once crowned as the savior of Japan. This is because before Carlos, Nissan was very, very having a hard time. They had a hard time, and with Carlos Ghosn, he was able to raise the performance of Nissan. Yes. However, in 2018, Carlos was charged with a few crimes. Those crimes are as seen in the slide here: a breach of trust and a misuse of company asset, which was done in order to cover up some of his losses in the 2008 recession, and then also the violation of securities law, which he violated twice, for which he misrepresented and or wrote numbers in the financial report of Nissan. So this is all very very serious charges. But one might ask, what might happen? Like what led up to this? So to figure it out, that is what my friends are going to explain. But now, as for myself, I'm going to explain what is it like in Goson's leadership. So in Goson's leadership, there is three things. First, they have an excessive focus on profitability, for which he doesn't necessarily take responsibility or at least any consideration of ethics when it terms of profitability. And with that, he also did some dangerous cost cutting, which is something like the 14 case, in which this led to a lot of recalls for their cars. And finally, the share-based incentive that led to bad QC. Now, these three factors are combined and can be put in a umbrella in one thing, in which they have in which Nissan have a poor product quality and a very poor quality control. So we could then have a key takeaway from all of this. So Carlos Ghosn led Nissan with a bad corporate governance, which led to all the disasters that Nissan had. And also he causes himself to be charged. And today, in this presentation, with this context, we are going to explain just how bad Carlos Ghosn's corporate governance is and how Nissan could one day avoid all of this from happening, and maybe perhaps Japan. How can Japanese company prevent this all from happening? Because this Nissan case also led to a downfall in stock prices for many other Japanese companies.
So before we proceed with further analysis on the misconduct, we have to note the facts first. So Nissan has been criticized for its lack of financial transparency and accountability in its business practices, particularly in relation to Ghosn's compensation and misuse of company resources. So Ghosn does not hold onto Nissan's code of conduct, which expects all employees to maintain the highest ethical standards and comply with all laws and regulation, which includes zero corruption. He was also accused of violating the integrity and compliance by involving in unreporting financial operation and partaking in tax evasion. And he was also accused of using company's funds to cover his expenses and personal investment losses. So, for example, his €50,000 expense for his wedding in 2016. So second is there is a lack of corporate governance toward the act of whistleblowing. So the scandal also involved Nissan's poor way of handling whistleblowing, as the company initially failed to address the concerns that was raised by the employees about Gon's behavior. And the special committee report found that Gon had too much authority and made certain that the administrative department's opaque, which makes it difficult to detect his demand for personal gain. So with this in mind, Nissan's top management turned to former global general counsel Ravinder Pasi to help with internal audit uh, of Gowen's alleged financial misconduct. So as the investigation proceeds, in actuality, it has become evident that there's a serious conflict of interest with by the key executives. So Pasi gathered all this information around Gowen and other people, and then shared his concern, but was essentially ignored. So then he took action further to voice this memo about credibility to Nissan's board of directors. But within 3 days of submitting the letter, he was then removed from Gowen's investigation and soon shut out of board meetings despite his responsibility as the global general counsel. So this reflects Nissan's poor way of handling whistleblowing, which shed light on the significance of transparency and accountability in corporate governance. Because after after whistleblowing the activity to the board of directors, there comes retaliation. So as his position, that which he has been worked for about a decade, to become the global general counsel, he became demoted, and he has to go back to the UK with his family. Not not in a way that you maybe think of, but he was forced and pressured and harassed to be moved to go back to the UK.
Thank you, Esther. The next is the fact that the concentration of power in Nissan is mostly in their CEO, which led to a lack of board supervision, which also led to a lack of transparency in their decision-making processes and activities. Next, Nissan followed a top-down approach, where employees' ability to say no to direction from above or to raise objections were restricted. And last of all, there was no nomination committee. So all directors were selected and appointed by executive directors and authorized by Cousin himself. And last of all is the fact that their audit committee and inter-control systems were suppressed and not able to function effectively. There was no proper review of reports by internal auditors and statutory auditors, who were routinely replaced if they expressed any opinion about the company. And legal, internal audit, and accounting departments also lacked the monitoring and internal control mechanisms to detect overpayment of compensation and private use of funds. And last of all, statutory auditors expressed doubts about the state of one of Nissan's subsidiary, but they were unable to learn more about the company due to opaque communication among the departments.
Okay, so now I will continue on the analytical action of Nissan itself. So the misconducts that is happening under the chief executive officer of Carlos Ghosn. So the main misconduct happened in Nissan is actually the abuse of power that he is able to do. And this abuse of power includes a lot of things, including manipulation of financial information, and then the no disclosure about company information. And these 2 points was very, very significant in the abuse of power in Nissan. And also very, very closely correlated, as it is also explained in the case that in the company itself, the financial transparency is very, very bad, and there are no clear transparency about the financial statement, financial condition, and also the condition of the company itself. And in this situation, Carlos Ghosn doesn't really give any appropriate disclosure to shareholders about the company activities, agents, management, and directors. And then the financial information that is being manipulated by Ghosn itself was by not disclosing it to shareholders or to the government, in which it includes the compensation of executives who receive over 100 million. And he also created a dummy or shell corporation named ZA Capital BV to divert funds for his personal use. which is to his personal benefits over a period of 8 years in approximately $19 million, 19 million USD. And in his time serving as the Nissan CEO and chair from 2001 until 2019, Gazan determined also his own salary without any oversight from other stakeholders, even internal or even external stakeholders. So his pay actually surpassed the 100 yen million amount, in which the disclosure was highly required by law. And also in discussing the cross-shareholding for his advantage, he was appointed the CEO and chairperson of both Renault and Nissan, in which he held a concentration of decision-making powers, which led to the condition of critical corporate problems. So he abused this cross-shareholding structure for his own advantage, making all decisions related to executive compensation and direct vast amounts of funds through shell companies that have been stated earlier, and eventually purchase personal real estate properties. And in discussing this abuse of power that are happening in Nissan, we can conclude that it happened because of a weak internal control, in which there are a lot of points here in, for example, no clear communication to external auditors, in which when auditors expressed doubts about the state of the subsidiary ZA Capital, they were unable to learn more about the company. Why? Because the communication between department is not as clear as it is. And it also happened in the aspects of internal auditors, in which when they ask for details or statements about the financial and other conditions for the company, they were changed or they were essentially was changed with other auditors. And maybe still having the shadows of the previous CEO, employees maybe still have the restricted ability to say no, even though Carlos Ghosn have make it able for the employees to give feedback to him. And then the third one is there are no independent remuneration committee in which it is connected to the manipulation of financial information and also the determining in his own pay without oversight. So without independent remuneration committee, there are no overseeing committee that would oversee the pay or remuneration of the company board or the employees itself. And then the last 2 points in which it is no separation of CEO and chair roles, and also the no supervisory roles for the BOD was also a big part of why abuse of power is able to be conducted by Carlos Ghosn in Nissan. So because there are no separation, he is able to do a lot of power and authority inside Nissan itself. And because there are no supervisory roles, he is able to do anything what he wants. Then next, I've used Blanchard and Peel ethical framework in order to analyze whether or not this case in Nissan is unethical, in which there are three questions that needs to be answered, which are: is it legal, is it fair, and how does it make me feel? The first one, is it legal? Of course, what he does is definitely not legal. He conducted financial fraud by misreporting his income and misusing the company assets for his own good and benefit, in which he is also facing repercussions for his actions. And by law itself, what he has done by misreporting his income was also unfair. So his misconduct was not fair, and his usage of company assets were not fair to all stakeholders of the company. And thus the lack of transparency of this is also a form of manipulation that is unbeneficial and unfair for the other stakeholders. And then lastly, how does it make me feel? For this question, actually, it is intended for the doers of the unethical itself. So putting perspective into Goson's side, he would, of course, would feel disgraceful as he have used authority for something that was not meant for him. So besides, what he's done was very, very unfair to many stakeholders of the company. So we can conclude that with the analysis from Blanchard and Peel ethical framework, it is not fair, it is not legal, and it is unethical.
Okay, now I'm going to move on to the next segment, which is the case question. Okay, so the first question is, what could Nissan have done differently to avoid its downfall in 1990s? So Nissan had been a leading automaker and global competitor for many years thanks to low prices, reliability, quality, and fuel efficiency. Nissan became a major exporter of cars to the United States in the 1950s. Its Datsun brand, especially the sporty two-door hatchback that became synonymous with the fuel efficiency during 1970s crisis, was popular with consumers. With effective brand building and increased avenues, Nissan became a model of Japan's industrial technology. Moving on to the downfall factors, it actually started in the 1980s with the release of inspired designs and rebranding from Datsun to Nissan, which have consumers confused about the two different brands. The company's manufacturing costs increased as management clashed with employees over labor issues. The company invested heavily in Keiretsu partners while ignoring research and innovation. A lack of innovation led to reduced demand for Nissan's vehicles at a time when Asian economies were hit at currency crisis and lead to reduced sales and export. With heavy investments in Keiretsu partners, Nissan faced liquidity issues and became heavily mired in debt. In stock's credit rating was reduced from investment grade to near junk bond status. Moving on for the suggestions for improvement, there's 4 of them. So to avoid most of its financial issues, Nissan should have invested in research and development and focus on designing new models with improved efficiency and also technology. This strategy could have helped Nissan maintain its competitiveness and stay ahead of the competition. So Nissan should highlight the role of research and development in manufacturing organizations. Okay, next, how did Gosden overcome challenges when he joined Nissan? What strategies did he use to turn Nissan around financially? So actually, there's 8 of them. So the first one is that, Gosden actually eliminated the Keiretsu system and released about $4 billion of cash that had been tied up to the group companies to significantly reduce the company's debt burden. Next one, he implemented performance-based pay plans and promotions across the organizations, which was specifically a challenging task because age, education level, and years of experience are key factors to determine employee promotion in Japan. He appointed executives from outside the country. He reduced the number of employees in the organization. He created cross-functional teams to address communication issues. He auctioned off non-performing resources, developing new automobile designs and new markets. And for the last one, he reinvested in research and development. Okay, so next I'm going to discuss about Gosden's leadership style and how it compared with the leadership style of Saikawa, which is his successor. So Gosden exhibited a participative and democratic leadership style when he joined Nissan. He involved subordinates at all levels in the decision-making process to form cross-functional teams. He regularly met with the employees on the factory floor and held discussion with employees. His leadership style motivated employees to work hard. His leadership style was the direct opposite of the autocratic style that characterized centralized decision-making and top-down management. So Gosden also encouraged participation and cooperation. He demonstrated charismatic and transformational leadership and encouraged innovation. He was easily approachable by subordinates and made them feel their opinions were always welcome. He was a democratic leader who encouraged teams to develop their own objective and measure. In contrast, Saikawa had a leadership style that was non-participative. He distanced himself from his co-workers. He was a stern enforcer and did not encourage participation or cooperations. Saikawa's leadership style could be defined as bureaucratic. For the 4th question, what circumstances make Gosden misconduct possible? How can companies prevent such misconduct? So there's 4 causes of that actually. The first one is excessive authority. The second one is lack of board oversight, and then financial incentive, and then the 4th one is limited accountability. So companies can prevent negative outcomes by appointing independent directors as chairs of their boards. An independent chair is more likely to identify and monitor the areas of a company that deviate of the main objective of creating value for all stakeholders. Independent chairs can put into place corrective actions to bring companies back on track if management appears to be faltering and can closely monitor the performance of the CEOs.
Okay, now allow me to continue the next question, which is how we evaluate the corporate governance practices that is adopted by the Nissan company. Well, Nissan company itself actually had a cross-shareholding structure, and the CEO itself concentrates on the decision-making powers by himself, which it actually led to a critical corporate problems. Well, some company might find this structure might find these structures benefits them, but in Nissan's case, it actually incurred some of the problems which the CEO, or Carlos Ghosn, I'm sorry if I spelled that wrong, is actually abusing the cross-shareholding structure for his own advantage. Like, for example, he's making the executive compensation, including his own appointment of the directors and the power over opinions on the auditor's self, all controlled by the CEO. He directed vast amount of funds that is through a shell companies and like another special purpose companies, and it only existed on paper, and it eventually purchased a personal real estate properties under his own name. And nextly is actually the board of director compositions. Well, the Nissan actually only have two independent BOD, which is the race car driver and a Japanese bureaucrat, which we think that both of them actually lacked experience in the business, especially in the automobile business. And as for the BOD itself, the composition of the BOD has to be affected by size, constitution, and qualification, also experience itself. So we think that they should have broadened their BOD compositions. Nextly, which is the board committee. So Nissan actually don't have any subcommittees. Also, the compensation and nominating committee would have been critical. The directors were instead selected by the appointed CEO, and their pay was also fixed by him. But the auditors, they don't actually have like a mechanism or a system to ensure that the power is functioning for the internal audits and controls. Now, the last one is actually very important, which is the disclosure and transparency. We find that the company and the chairperson were not actually transparent. They don't even tell the company interest on the share of the shareholders. The company itself, the CEO itself manipulated financial information by not disclosing that they have like compensation for the executives, which received over 100 million yen. They also created, like I said earlier, a shell corporation dummy account to disclose a personal use of funds. And those fraud activities are not actually recorded by the auditors. Sorry. Now, the next question is the advantages and disadvantages of the incentive-based executive compensation system. And the advantages itself is that they have to mitigate agency problems, which it actually aligns the interests of the executives manager itself with the interests of the shareholders. And lastly, they also they also are motivating the executives to make them have to maximize their wealth for the shareholder itself, because there are actually no systems in the paying system of the executives. And now we talk about the disadvantages, which is the corporate governance structure causes them to have a short-term financial decisions by the CEO itself. The result is usually a short-term profits, which will maximize the CEO incentives rather than the shareholder itself. Like I said earlier, the CEO is abusing excessive powers, and all the decisions like by the BOD, executive salaries, it goes to the CEO own paying. And the last case question is that how should the new Nissan CEO and board of directors strengthen the leadership, and should the company adopt a new governance model? Sorry. So the main reason for Nissan's company is that it's actually the governance failure, and the CEO concentrates of corporation power and lacks supervisory of the control of the BOD. And the for the new governance model or system, they should focus on risk management and improve the profitability, because we all know that Nissan is not actually doing bad in the terms of branding and a company talk, but the risk management is actually for the company system itself. And next, they have to increase diversity to make up for both its executive body and its board of directors. Lastly, they have to manage the alliance by restructuring its ownership and revitalizing the relationship with Renault. Or I heard that they actually have like a partnership with Mitsubishi, which causes some like alliance with some of the automobile company. And lastly, they have to strengthen the leadership. They have to build trust with the essential element of strong governance, because in the building trust, they have to, like I said earlier, they have to build transparency. They have to build disclosure about what they actually gain from the company. And next, they should appoint more independent directors. Also, from the point I said earlier, they have there have to be more diverse independent directors, in order for the company to not actually divide it into like some experts, or we call it BOD. And lastly, create a nominating and remuneration committees with independent directors as chair of each committee.
So, I will explain it about who is more responsible on this situation, because it's difficult to conclude who is more to blame for Nissan current situation following the scandal Carlos Ghosn or the next CEO, because as well know that a lot of things that Carlos Ghosn already do in this company that make damage Nissan reputation, and people already has negative consequence of this company, and this damage is a result of his personal misconduct, not an unrelated event. Yes, actually, this is Carlos Ghosn reputation that damaged Nissan's, and actually this Carlos Ghosn responsible, but this not fully his responsible, because the controversy has left tainted position for the next CEO, which is the next CEO to has responsible for this scandal, for this problem in this company. And actually the next CEO will a lot of things to do for made up the problem that Carlos Ghosn made, because they must rebuild trust with investor, regulators, and the public too. Additionally, they might need to address any lingering governance weakness left by the previous administration. Why I said it's difficult to conclude, because it's not fully Carlos Ghosn responsible, because he's not he's not he's not the CEO of Nissan anymore, and because of that, the next CEO has a fully responsible on this situation, and the next CEO will have a fully responsible to make up all of the problems, all of the action and scandal that Carlos Ghosn made before, and just rebuild the whole company to make it more better, to make sure the public that the Nissan company is more better than before, because there are a lot of things gone action that affect this company. I know my friend said before, as Gon's action is like underreporting remuneration, manipulation financial information, labor conflicts, lack of board oversight, cross-functional team, lack of transparency, new automobile design and market, and research and development. This is only a little bit Carlos Ghosn action that affect the company. That's why this is fully responsible for the next CEO to made up all of the Carlos Ghosn action
to improve the situation and to prevent similar things in Nissan. So first we have four scope. The first and the second scope is executive board roles and audit and remuneration committee, which we will analyze with the gap analysis. So first is the existing situations. The first existing situation is there are no differences between CEO and chair's roles as what was conducted by the CEO of Nissan itself, with which we want the ideal condition is to be there are a separation of roles of CEO and chairs. And our recommendation for that existing situation is that to appoint an outside independent director as a chairman. And the second one is the low supervisory role in board of directors. Why? Because in Nissan itself, the directors have zero chance for them to do supervisory role or even giving arguments. So the ideal condition is that the board of directors to have to provide supervisory role with the recommendation to give board members more powers and establish a list of matters to be discussed. The third one is there are no business execution audit and board of directors roles monitoring, with an ideal condition of duty of due professional care to the company by external auditors, with the recommendation of qualified independent auditor outside director as the audit committee and appoint an independent director as chair. The fourth existing situation is there are no review by audit committee. And what we want is that there will be a review by an audit committee with the recommendation of establish an internal audit department reporting to the audit committee that regularly audits company business. And the last one is unstable remuneration system by non-independent committee, as we know that the case is all about the compensation towards the CEO. So with the ideal condition of remuneration policy and contracts handled by independent remuneration committee. And our recommendation for this situation is to set up an independent remuneration committee and remuneration policy. Next one, Agit.
Okay, so continuing Azkal, we're gonna move on to two of the others recommendation. Is in internal managerial condition and also in external relation. So the existing situation of the internal managerial condition is there is low supervision and control internally. So basically in Nissan itself, the control over divisions and also the hierarchy of the controls are very unclear, and thus creating a lot of miscommunication and also misconduct by their employees. So the ideal condition that we propose here is to have strong internal controls by promoting the check and approval function of every unit and division. So every decision and every move done by a division and their employees have to be checked and approved by their head and also the manager, and also we bring that up to the directors. Next, the second one is recurring conflict of interest among the management. So yes, the unclear of communication that I mentioned before regularly creates conflict of interest among the management of Nissan itself. Thus, the ideal condition that we want to achieve is there is minimum to non conflict of interest. And the recommendation here is to establish conflict of interest resolution policy. So when there is conflict of interest, it can be resolved in a way that is effective and efficient and not affecting the company too much. The third one is intransparent communication to investors and stakeholders. So back again to the Nissan itself, the communication is one of the main problem here. And also to the external parties, to investor and stakeholders, the BODs doesn't disclose that much information, so they just keep that to themselves. Because one of the reasons also is because the CEO is also the commissioner, which in the job analysis itself, it's very it cannot be like that, because the commissioner are there to supervise the BOD, while the CEO here is the president commissioner. So in that lack of clearness in the structure and also the job analysis itself, it creates intransparent communication to investor and stakeholders. So every decision that has to be communicated, they just keep them to themselves. And this has been the problem in Nissan. So the ideal condition that we are going to achieve here is transparent and clear communication, with the recommendation of setting up an investor relation department, and also communicate all company information to all related stakeholders. So the stakeholders, the shareholders, and also the investors, they know what is the step that the company is taking, and they can supervise it from a helicopter point of view. The last one is no line of report for illegal or unethical practices. So in the case itself, Nissan doesn't have any whistleblowing feature that the employee can blow whenever they see, they perceive, or they feel that there is unethical practices. So the ideal condition that we are going to achieve here is to create and provide the employees with a whistleblowing feature that can be used by anyone in the company. So even if you're a very, very low status employee, or you are a manager, or you are a vice president and such, you can whistleblow anytime you see or you feel that, oh, this is a misconduct, this is something is unethical or illegal. You can whistleblow with that feature that we created, where the recommendation is to implement a hotline system with internal and external point of contact. So the hotline system doesn't only link you with internal employees, but also to the external. So there is no bias in the recommendation further ahead, but the internal and external point of contact is enabling the employees to freely report any acts that is may suspected to be as unethical. So yeah, that is Azkal and my answer to what should be done in the future to improve the situation and to prevent similar things in happening again. So thank you so much for listening to Group 6 or our presentation about the Nissan case. I hope you enjoy it, and if there are any questions, let us know. Thank you.